Kia ora, I'm Zoe George and welcome to Fair Play, a podcast covering women in sport from athletes and results to current affairs and issues. If you're new to the podcast, kia ora, welcome. You can find our entire back catalogue at wispsports.com under the New Zealand podcast section and the October episode on rnz.co.nz. There you can also find a range of other fantastic shows from around the world and various sports, bringing you the latest in news from women in sport. You can also follow us on social media at WiSP Sports. This month, we look towards the Rugby League World Cup. Kiwi Ferns Vice-Captain Georgia Hales joins us shortly to discuss the competition, their preparation, and not having a home ground advantage. Then, women's rugby is having a phenomenal growth. Black Fern Kendra Cocksedge on the success of the team, why more women are playing, and what really happened in the dressing room during the Rugby World Cup Final. But first, I'd like to say kia ora to today's guest co-host, Bronwyn Easterbrook-Smith. Kia ora, Bronwyn. Now, you're a podiatrist from Resonance, based in Wellington. Why did you want to be a podiatrist and work with athletes? Foot.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone ever grows up wanting to work with feet, but it's sort of the way that it worked out for me, and it's worked out pretty well.
Can you tell by looking at someone's foot whether or not they're an elite athlete?
Probably not. The average athlete's foot would probably be slightly harder worn than the regular person's, but that's not to say that everyday people don't develop, a lot of sort of wear and tear and bumps and bruises on their feet as well.
Yes, we'll be talking a little later about finding the perfect pair. I know it seems a little bit ironic. We're a women's podcast and we're talking about shoes, but our feet do take a battering and it's important to take care of them, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But first, we look forward to the Rugby League World Cup. It starts in Australia next week. New Zealand share a pool with Papua New Guinea and Canada, while Australia, England and the Cook Islands make up the other pool. All of the games are being held in Australia, unlike the men's tournament that's spread across Australia, New Zealand and Papua New Guinea. The games will be at Southern Cross Stadium in Sydney, with the final being played as a head-to-head with the men at Brisbane Stadium. We're joined by Georgia Hales. Kia ora, Georgia. How exciting, not long to go now.
Not long to go. It's been a long time coming, but really excited for this Saturday when we head into camp.
How have preparations gone?
Really good. So off the back of our Anzac test, we did a lot of reflecting, which was earlier in the year. We have an organisation on board called Athlete Nation, and they've been working really closely with us to get our bodies in as best condition as possible leading into the World Cup. So in terms of preparation with the fitness side of things, that's been really good. And fortunately enough, I'm based in Auckland, so we've had a lot of opportunities for game time, which has been crucial leading into the campaign.
You're playing Canada and the Cook Islands and Papua New Guinea in the rounds. What will be the biggest challenge facing those teams?
I personally haven't been to a World Cup yet, so I'm not entirely sure what to expect. And I think with all World Cup teams we will face, I don't think we can go in too lightly. All teams will have their different strengths and different weaknesses. And I think the most important thing for our team is focusing on what we bring to the table. We're a really physical team and we have a lot of grit. So we've just really been in the lead up focused on what our strengths are, what we can bring to the World Cup, and really just waiting to see what those other teams bring as well.
What are the strengths of the New Zealand women?
Well, I think for the New Zealand team, we haven't had as much support in the past as what we could have. So I think for our team, we're such a passionate group of women. We play basically for the love of the game and nothing else. And I think that creates a really unique culture for our team and brings us really close together. So I think for us, one of our strongest things is our sisterhood and how close we are. And then, like I mentioned before, our physicality. We have some strong ball runners in our team and some aggressive defenders. So I think that will be on show come World Cup time.
What is the reality of winning the World Cup? Is it possible?
Oh, definitely, 100%. We have had really good prep. And I think all the hard work has been done leading into it. So for us, going into World Cup, it's more about just fine-tuning, playing our own game and taking each game as it comes.
Who do you want to face in the semi-finals?
Oh, tough question. I think not knowing what the other teams are like, it's hard to say at this point. But I would think England. I have heard that they're quite a strong team, and we don't want an easy road. We want to be challenged along the way, and maybe England's the team that can do that.
That would be very interesting. We're talking shoes shortly with Bronwyn Easterbrook-Smith. Tell me about the type of footwear you wear, and when you first started playing rugby league, did you have to wear boots that were designed for men?
Generally, that's the case, because you look at football boots and it's kind of just one type in men's sizes. So that's usually the way we've gone in the past.
Bronwyn, when it comes to wearing sprigged boots, what are some of the biggest concerns that we need to think about?
Pressure points. So because obviously the sprig is essentially like either a piece of plastic or metal attached to plastic on the bottom of your foot, they can cause quite severe pressure points on the bottom of your feet. So you do need to just make sure that you're taking care of your feet, you're alternating your footwear so you're not wearing them all the time to try and prevent injuries such as stress fractures, for example.
And what's the difference between men and women's feet? If women are wearing men's sprig shoes, is this an issue?
Yeah, so, well, it depends on the foot. So obviously every foot is different. Some women's feet are very similar to men's feet, but generally the width differs. So women's feet tend to be a little bit narrower, and they actually tend to be a little bit more flexible. So we can need that little bit more support than men.
How many pairs of boots do you go through, Georgia?
Yeah, quite a few, especially because it's a winter sport, with the mud and the rain. They don't tend to last as long as you'd like. And it's nice also to just chuck on a fresh pair of boots.
We're speaking with Georgia Hales, who is playing for the Kiwi Ferns in the Rugby League World Cup, which starts in Australia next week. Now, you mentioned this sisterhood and playing for the love of the game, and pay parity is a hot topic right now in sport. You don't get paid to play, do you?
No, not at all.
Do the men?
The men sure do, yes.
Yeah. I put this to the CEO of Rugby League New Zealand, and I actually got a statement back which was really interesting. He says, this is Alex Hayton, says regarding the World Cup, yes, the Kiwis are being paid. For the first time ever, the Kiwi Ferns will be receiving an allowance. Is the allowance enough to cover your daily allowances, your rent, your mortgage, the things that you're not earning while you're away?
At this stage, I'm not entirely sure what that allowance looks like, but I know the first time I ever made Kiwi Ferns, we had to pay some of our way to go over to compete in a test match, and that was only a couple of years ago. So I think no matter what the size of the allowance is, I think that's going to make a massive difference to some of the women in our team. Some of the women in our team are the main money makers. Others are single mothers, running households and things like that. So, hopefully this is just the seed of, something that's going to grow in the future. And I'm sure whatever support financially is given our way, I'm sure will make a massive difference to some of the ladies in our team.
NZRL have said that pay parity is important, and since taking responsibility for the Kiwi Ferns, they have actively looking at ways to grow the women's game at all levels. Currently, it is in a growth and development phase, and it will take time for it to gain the level of commercial recognition it needs to, so that we are in a position to pay them a fair amount, which I find is really fascinating because there's been a lot of talk around commerciality and women's sport this week. Should sporting organisations, Georgia, be putting money into the development more than anything else?
That's where it all starts. Even just to see a step forward in the right direction for us is huge, because I know from where the women's game was to where it is now has changed rapidly. So just the fact that we have a little bit more resource behind us, people are helping and supporting as much as we can, just shows us that the game is heading in a different direction and it's stepping up. And hopefully one day we will be competing at exactly the same level as the men's and being rewarded the exact same way.
Well, you are already competing on the same level. You're competing on the world stage.
Yeah, which is pretty neat. For me, it's going to be the first time at World Cup. So, yeah, I think when I'm actually over there and in the entire experience, then I will see that the way we play the game is just as important as the men. Georgia
Hales, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and all the best for the Rugby League World Cup. We'll be watching closely.
Thank you very much.
So that was Georgia Hales from the Rugby League. Bronwyn, really interesting talking about this pay parity issue. And before we talk rugby, I wanted to stay on this pay parity. Along with NZRL saying that pay parity is important, they say that they consider the women's game to be important to rugby league. Over the last 20 to 30 years, female participation in sport has increased globally. In some sports, this has led to the professionalisation of the women's game when a critical mass of public interest and following is achieved. With the Nines and the recent Anzac Test, the Women's Rugby World Cup and the Women's Finals being played live before the men's, we expect increased public interest that will eventually lead to commercial interest and enable us to improve the pay and conditions for our athletes. Pay and conditions for our athletes.
Yeah. I mean, I think they really have to respect that a lot of these women are physically putting their bodies on the line for the sport and for entertainment, and for them to not be financially compensated at all for it for however long and now being paid an allowance for it is pretty, yeah. I mean, it's a step forward, obviously, but yeah. Pretty interesting.
There's been a lot of talk about it this week, especially with the new Minister of Sport, Grant Robertson, coming out and saying that there needs to be pay parity in rugby, and we'll be talking about rugby shortly. But the New Zealand Rugby Union are currently in negotiations with the women, and we wish them all the very best for that. I also put this to cricket. I took this to the Cricket Players Association head Heath Mills, and he says that he expects there will be a massive growth in women's cricket, particularly in the T20 arena, which will see our players head to the likes of India and Australia to play. Now, they have a memorandum of understanding with New Zealand Cricket and now have 15 retainer contracts starting from $21,000 to $36,000 plus match fees. He says hopefully this will increase with negotiations continuing in the next 12 months. I mean, that is promising. $21,000 to $36,000 though, compared to what the men get.
Yeah, which they, I mean, I know for the All Blacks especially, they don't even disclose the amounts. So, yes.
Oh, well, let's stick with rugby. Let's talk about women's rugby. In New Zealand, it's on the up and up with record numbers of women playing the game. Stats released by New Zealand Rugby show nearly 25,000 women play the game in New Zealand. In 2017, almost 1 in 6 registered players were female, with an 11% increase on 2016. Small Blacks, girls aged between 5 and 12, make up the largest growth area, up 9% to nearly 17,000 players. Could it be anything to do with the Black Ferns winning a 5th World Cup? Possibly. Black Fern and Canterbury Development Officer Kendra Cocksedge is on the phone with us now. Congratulations on winning the World Cup, by the way, Kendra.
Thank you.
What an amazing outcome that was.
Oh, it's been, fantastic, and as you mentioned, it's good. It's good for the game back here, and we had one job, and that was to go over there and bring it home, and to bring it back is something pretty special. 5 times we have won the World Cup. Yeah, pretty unreal, huh? Yeah. What was it like being the second highest point scorer for the competition? Oh, these things come down to, it's a team effort. I guess being a goal kicker, you tend to get a couple extra points. So, it's handy. I can't do that kind of stuff without the support from my team, and especially when, I see someone like Portia Woodman being the top point scorer for the tournament. She's an unreal athlete. Yeah, it was nice to see Kiwis 1 and 2. Do you think that the success of the Black Ferns has contributed to attracting more girls and women to the game? Yes, I'm a huge believer of that. Obviously I work in it as well being a player. Like what I've seen, I've been in the Black Ferns for 11 years, and what I've seen in that time is huge growth. And it helps when you do win the World Cups, and I'm getting people, older people come up to me and say, it's awesome to watch that final, and it's great to see women playing, and the quality and the skill level is good to watch. And we never used to hear that, and now it's out there more. And these young girls are seeing it more on TV. It's getting more exposure, and I think that's what's been important as well. There's definitely been a big growth in the younger groups. You've got that 5 to 12 kind of market all secured. So what happens when we reach teenage years? It's still quite popular in that age. Obviously the sevens been an Olympic sport now is driving more girls to play the sport, as well as the 15s World Cup. But I think for that age group, we're providing more opportunities for them to be able to play in that age. And there's under 15 tournaments now, and there's under 18s, and in the future, there's going to be a lot more different grades. And I think with that teenage group as well, they all play lots of sports. I mean, I was the same at school. I played 5-6 different sports, and maybe later on is when they decide that maybe rugby might be their sport that they end up choosing.
In the younger groups as well, we play a lot with boys, don't we?
Yep. I mean, I grew up playing with the boys up in Taranaki. It was me and the rest of the boys. But I mean, that's another thing as well, is that's as part of my job too, is to provide more opportunities for the young girls to be able to play with their friends and to be able to play, with other girls. And saying that, in the ripper stuff and the tackle, like if girls want to play with the boys, I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, I believe that, I've got some great skills and become a better person by playing, I guess, with the boys when I was younger. But it's just, still got to be able to provide that opportunity for the ones that may not want to play with the boys.
Well, the World Cup was absolutely spectacular, but in that final against England, you went into the halftime break down. So what happened in the dressing room to get you going?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we had a game plan that we wanted to kind of play against England. We didn't quite do that in the first half. We didn't have a lot of ball actually in that first half. So, and at half time, I think it was a really interesting feeling actually sitting in the changing rooms. Everyone was kind of calm. I just remember looking around the room and, everyone was kind of just nice and relaxed. And, the backs coach especially, he goes to me, he's like, are you all right? Because usually I do a lot of talking. I'm a halfback, but I do a lot of talking and with the backs when we split into backs and forwards at the halftime huddle. And I said to him, no, I'm good. And he's like, you sure? And I'm like, yep. But I just didn't say a lot. And then he goes to me again just before he walked out. He's like, oh, are you sure you're okay? And he's like, are you going to be all right? And I was like, don't worry about it. We've got this. Like, it's just the feeling in there was just the fact that everyone was just so focused. And we all had that one job and we knew what we needed to do. Glenn, our coaching, and all coaches, all the management really were nice and calm as well. I think that kind of helped, and, they just trusted that we were going to do the job in the second half, and obviously we did it.
Did you have to change the style of play from the first half to the second?
Yeah, I mean, we had a game plan, as I said, that we wanted to take to England. It was obviously with being Portia being out on the wing, I think they expected us to play an expansive game in that second half, but we decided to obviously track it up the middle and use the forwards a bit more. One of our props scored a hat-trick. So, that was the plan. It was just to kind of take them out the front and just keep going, and then we keep scoring tries, so we're like, it's working, so why change it? And we just kept going. So it was a really fun second half to play in, actually. Yeah,
41-32, the final score for the World Cup. It was brilliant, actually. It was well worth waking up at whatever time it was in the morning to watch.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty high score too for a final.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are you looking forward to in 2018?
I guess I've been talking to my work team and stuff, and it's just been able to get Nancy, the World Cup, out and about, to these young girls and inspire these young girls and give them, I guess, role models to aspire to. And I think that's what's going to be important for us. And the more we can kind of get that exposure and get out and about is the best thing for the game.
Did you say that the World Cup is called Nancy?
Yeah.
Who named the World Cup Nancy?
Well, it was kind of just our media manager, Meredith, and myself. We were just at the airport and a couple of other girls, and we had a bit of a theme this year. Guerrilla warfare and Nancy Wake, and she was born in New Zealand and quite a strong female. So we based everything around Nancy Wake, and then all of a sudden we were like, oh, what should we call her? And then she was like, Meredith was like, oh, Nancy. And I was like, yeah, that's a great name. And we started calling it Nancy, and it just stuck.
That is brilliant. Well, I hope that you can bring Nancy up to see us. We'd love to see her.
Yeah, we can do that at some stage, no doubt.
Kendra Cocksedge, thanks so much for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you in action in 2018.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Rugby. Gotta love it. That World Cup final was incredible. Before we move on and talk about shoes, one of my favourite topics, and yours too, I understand. I just wanted to do a couple of quick hits. Congratulations to White Ferns, who have been doing really well against Pakistan in the UAE. Fair Play co-host Sophie Devine scored her second one-day ton recently, so well done to her. She's winging her way to Australia shortly to get some game time in before Christmas. So we look forward to catching up with her when she returns home. Tennis and the ATP and Red Bull scandal. Bronwyn, did you see this?
I saw it in passing.
ATP were hosting the Young Players Carnival Festival, and they got up these models on stage, and then the models revealed an A or a B somewhere on their body, and then they swiftly apologised after a whole lot of complaints on Twitter. And there's a fantastic article in Forbes that says, why did not any of these organisations raise this issue, particularly in light in the recent wave of sexual harassment allegations following the Harvey Weinstein scandal in Hollywood? And sexual harassment in sport is something that is quite prevalent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you come across that in your job?
Not so much. I think because we're kind of leaning more towards healthcare than really like into sports itself. It's a lot more sort of, I guess, gender neutral. People generally don't mind, obviously, who they're seen by, as long as they are well qualified and know what they're talking about.
Interestingly as well, on the ATP website, it says that its 6-man board of directors is 100% male, and the women's tour, the WTA, which is headed by a man, has only 2 women on it, 7-strong board of directors. Moving on, the Volvo Ocean Race. Have you been watching this? Have you been following this at all, Bronwyn?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's so exciting. They've just kicked off their second leg, and we've been enjoying following WiSP regulars Dee Caffrey and Liz Wardley, along with Kiwi Bianca Cook. They're racing for Team Turn the Tide on Plastic, which is a mixed youth-based team with strong sustainable message. This is actually Bianca's first Volvo Ocean Race, so we wish her all the best of luck. They're currently on their second leg to Cape Town, and they'll be in Auckland in late February to mid-March, and we look forward to watching their progress. Is sailing something that you'd like to try, like the Volvo Ocean Race?
Yeah, it looks really fun. I generally love water sports. I grew up in and around the water, so I think sailing would be something that I could definitely quite get into.
We could talk about shoes on boats.
Boat shoes.
Boat shoes. But no, instead we're going to talk about finding the right shoe for us in the sport that we choose, because it's actually really important, isn't it? You can't just wear one type of shoe for all different types of sport.
Yeah.
So what happens if we choose the wrong shoe for the wrong sport?
Most often it leads to injury. So generally our mantra with finding shoes is fit, feel, function. Okay. So first of all, a shoe has to fit your foot. There's no point wearing a shoe which doesn't fit your foot, because it's going to cause problems. It might be something minor like blisters or calluses or something like that, or it might be something major like hammer toes. It has to feel good. And that is really, really important. If you don't feel good in a shoe, then essentially there's no point wearing it, because you're not going to be performing at your best if you're not in a shoe that you feel comfortable in. And of course, function, like you just said, it has to be functionally specific for what you're doing. So there's no point going out and running on the trails in a pair of netball shoes, for example.
That are suited for concrete.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to things like tread in the shoe as well, doesn't it?
Yep. So there are 3 main parts to any shoe, or most sort of sports shoes. So the upper, which is really important for fit. So it should feel nice and firm on your foot. It shouldn't feel tight. It shouldn't be baggy. Then there's the midsole, which is sort of the bit that you kind of see when you look at a shoe. It's the sole that you see. So it can be supportive, cushioned, or responsive, sort of based on what you're doing. This is kind of where shoe companies tend to put their technology in. So it might have gel impregnated in the midsole, it might have a wave plate for stability, or something along those lines, in order to make it sort of specific to what you're doing. And then there's the outsole. So generally this is sort of tough, stable, and provides the appropriate level of grip for whatever you are doing.
Long term, what kind of damage can we do to our bodies if we continue to wear the wrong shoes?
Well, the tricky thing is that women, unfortunately, are actually more prone to injuries in the lower limbs than men are. And that is in part due to our menstrual cycle. So because our hormones go up and down, so at various points in the menstrual cycle, our ligament and tendon laxity, so how stretchy and flexible they are, it increases and it can put us at higher risk of injury. So that can be for things such as patellofemoral pain syndrome, or knee pain, iliotibial band syndrome, medial tibial stress syndrome or shin splints, stress fractures, plantar fasciitis, and Achilles tendinopathy.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's lots of things that can go wrong, but they don't have to go wrong.
Right. Yes, we last time on WiSP Sports, we actually talked about optimising training with your cycles. So it's good to know. She did mention very briefly that we were more likely to be injured while on our period. Yeah. That's really fascinating. Okay, so what about strapping then? So I've had a few injuries. I've now got my right shoe.
Yeah.
Do I strap my feet or should I just get used to those shoes?
It really depends what you're strapping for. So strapping tape, I'm assuming you're probably discussing rigid strapping tape, so the quite firm stuff. In terms of support and stability, it will provide some support. The evidence suggests that in the long term, it's probably not going to make a great deal of difference. It provides a lot of proprioceptive feedback, which essentially helps our brain to figure out where our foot or leg is in space. So in that sense, it can give you greater awareness of what you're doing with your feet and your ankles. But if it was for support and stability, then the range of bracing that's available now, really, if you're using it every single time you're performing a sport, you probably will be better off using a brace.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have to use a brace all the time? Like if I've severely injured my ankle and I've come back from rehab, should I have to wear a brace all the time?
It depends how severe your injury is. There's no sort of cut and paste. Everything to do with injuries is really specific to the person. So I couldn't say for sure.
And after sport care, we've done our sport, we've taken off our shoes. How do we take care of our feet?
One of the best things that you can do for your feet is actually look at them, which a lot of people don't like to do. A lot of people hate feet. They hate their own feet. They don't want to look at other people's feet. They just kind of don't want to think about feet. But at Resonance, we are really, really into preventative care. So if you look at your feet and you think, oh, that's really weird, I've got a whole lot of callus on the bottom of my feet or in a specific area, then generally it provides us with feedback that, okay, the reason why you're getting that is because there is something occurring which is causing that to build up. So really, I think the best thing that you could do for your feet is actually preemptively get them checked out and find out if there's anything going on that you might not necessarily be aware of. Moisturize them, you know.
Foot bath,
yeah. But I mean, shoes we're sort of glossing over it, but shoes really play a huge part in foot health because we're in them for, 12 hours a day sometimes.
What about athletes who wear high heels?
I mean, it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
Anybody can wear whatever they want at any time. High heels do force your foot forward and they push your centre of gravity forward. They can shorten your Achilles. They increase pressure on your metatarsal heads. So if I was an athlete, I personally wouldn't be wearing high heels for any extended length of time. And I would be making sure that I was stretching thoroughly afterwards.
That's good advice for all the athletes who are off to red carpet events and awards ceremonies in the next little while. Bronwyn, it's been an absolute pleasure having you come on board with us today. And I'm sure we've got lots more questions about shoes in the future and feet.
Absolutely. Embrace them.
Yeah, well, you've got us off to a running start with that one. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. And that's it for me. I'm looking forward to the league. Go the Kiwi Ferns. How about you? What's on your radar?
I'm just excited for more sunshine.
Yeah, bring it on, sunshine. And that's it for this episode of Fair Play. You can find more on wispsports.com, and don't forget to like, follow and share us on Facebook and Twitter at Wisp Sports. We'd love to hear from you. You can also listen to some of the other fantastic podcasts coming from top sports journos and athletes from around the world, covering every sport imaginable, from sailing to horse riding. Thank you to executive producer Chris Stafford, guest co-host presenter Bronwyn Easterbrook-Smith. I'm Zoe George. Thanks again, and don't forget to play hard but play fair.